And welcome to the Four Lads Had a Dream podcast network. It's Friday night, and it's Scott Patterson on your Friday night, which I don't think has ever happened before. So, as always, I'm glad to be on, and I'm pleased to be joined by three, two of my familiar faces that I'm used to, and one who I've never podded with before, which is going to be really cool, and I'm looking forward to that. Before we get into the intros, thanks to our friends at CSD Air Conditioning, Athlon Industrial Solutions, Black Rooster, Rhino Express, and Clydeview Joinery for looking after us this season. We are really grateful for the support, and we hope that come May, we've got something to celebrate as a group. Joining me to discuss Steven Gerrard, let's be honest, is Kenny, Rob, and Cheryl. Kenny, first time for you and I, my friend. How are you?
I'm very good, mate. Thank you for having me on, and I'm really looking forward to having a wee chat with you and Rob.
Cheryl, do you want to feedback to that? I'll go to you first for a change, shall I?
Do you know what? Sometimes the best thing to say is nothing at all, and not to even dignify it with a response. But likewise, I'm very much looking forward to podding with your good self and Rob, two stand-up, honest gentlemen.
Rob, the pressure's on you to not make an ass of it, to be perfectly honest with you.
Absolutely. I'm looking forward to podding with everybody. Being the new guy on the block, I think that's probably the safest thing that I can say at this moment in time.
Yes, indeed. Listen, you're all welcome, as always. If you are watching us in the comments, get involved. Let us know where you think we're going to go as far as our next appointment's concerned. One thing that I am going to ask our podders tonight, as a point of interest, and let's be honest, we think it's going to be Steven Gerrard. We're hoping it's going to be Steven Gerrard. I think we hope it's going to be Steven Gerrard. I do wonder if he was to decide he didn't fancy it for whatever reason, who would be your next go-to? And I'll go to each of you very shortly to discuss that very point. Tonight on the pod, we're going to discuss that, everything that's going on, how fluid the situation is as we understand it just now, the involvement of Patrick Stewart and Kevin Thelwell in the full interview process. If reports are to be believed, they are not in the mix with it. Whether that's true or not, I don't know. We will also do a little bit about how excited Jermaine Defoe seems to be permanently. And of course, we will not let tonight go without discussing the events at the Walter Smith statue. We will come to that. It's very important. We can't let it pass. Cheryl, the last time we spoke was last Sunday night, and we came off air and we thought there's nothing going to happen with this, and we were off for about 10 minutes and the previous manager disappeared, and we know what's happened from then to now. I think everyone's quite content that there's a change in the offing. Happy with Steven Gerrard, and if he wasn't to be your next man in charge, who would you go for?
Do you know what? It's really, really difficult, Scotty, because I've said up until now that he wouldn't be my go-to. I didn't know who was, but I was very much of the mindset that, you know, he left us before. We know there was underlying stuff behind it. We know there was maybe issues with the board and being backed, etc. But he hasn't done anything of note since he left us. He didn't do a particularly great job down at Aston Villa, didn't cover himself in glory over in Saudi. But I think, kind of having thought about it over the last week or so, there's just some things that seem to fit. And I think he very much fitted with us. We got him, he got us, and it worked. In the main, it really, really worked. So I don't know who I would have next. I've got two thoughts on it. I think if he's come over, I think it was Scott in the comments said if he's been willing to travel and have these talks, there must be a serious amount of kind of intention and consideration there. We know that there's issues with HMRC. So if he's willing to have those talks, I don't know if there's maybe been assurances made from either the club or HMRC. The other way I would go with it is if it's not him, my absolute sympathies would go to whoever it was, because whoever it is going to have a really, really difficult job on their hands. I know people have spoke about Stephen Robinson. People have spoken about Derek McInnes, and I think there's fairly decent shouts, but I think everybody is just now so on board the Steven Gerrard train that anyone else that came in would have an almost impossible job, almost a kind of Russell Martin style job on their hands to win everybody over.
Kenny, that's a great point, because I think everyone is largely aboard that train that we listeners, Rangers supporters, we've not had a lot to look at with a great deal of excitement, and we automatically go back to 55 and the way we felt then, and how much it meant and how good it was just to see it happen. Feels like it was ages ago now, effectively it was. But we are all built up now for that crescendo of him with a scarf above his head walking out the tunnel, aren't we?
Yeah, we are, aren't we? And I think about 85% of the support seem to be on board with this. There's very few that aren't excited about this. On that, I think it will be. I've got to say, I think it will be Gerrard. I don't think he's coming all the way over to London to do a couple of days of talks without already having a huge amount of assurances. But if it was to be somebody else, I'm a little bit like Cheryl, although it pains me to say it. I'm genuinely not quite sure who I would want to go for. I think the kind of most obvious choice for me would be Derek McInnes, because he knows the league, he knows the club and stuff like that. But it'd be more for me because it would really, really piss you and Cameron off, wouldn't it? I mean, it really would. And that would be fun. That would just be absolutely funny. I would...
yeah, agreed.
He'd be going to meltdown, wouldn't he? But look, I don't know if you've seen the young Stephen Purden's phone call to him from his podcast yesterday.
No, I've
when
not
he was
seen
winding him up and he was telling him that Derek McInnes was at Ibrox. It's worth a watch. You and Cameron's not happy, effing and blinding all over the place. And it was really funny to watch. But on the face of it, as I say, the most natural thing would be McInnes for me. I don't want somebody like Danny Rowe, because for me that's, literally frying pan fire scenario, and I don't want to see it. I just do not want to see that. And it's not that I don't think the guy's a good coach or a good manager. I think he'd probably do a fine job. It's just too similar. It's too samey for me, and we need a figurehead. I think that's kind of where I'm at with it, Scott. That's the kind of manager we need. I don't think we need a head coach as such.
Rob, so quite a few people are saying, so McInnes has been mentioned probably way more than I thought he was going to in the first instance. I personally think, considering how well Derek McInnes has started at Hearts, I think he would be a bit mad to go to Rangers, to be perfectly honest with you, considering the way things appeared just now. And obviously we're only having the sort of experience of opening into the bonnet. I think if Derek McInnes, he's right in there, into the weeds with it, right in the building and inspecting everything that's going on and everything that's went on during the summer. By all accounts, there seems to be things that have went on at the club in the summer that have been for the good of the football club. How that has sort of transcended onto the pitch, I think, is up for debate. Rob, is McInnes in the conversation for you, assuming it's not Stevie G?
Not for me. I think McInnes had his opportunity to take the job, and I think he's missed the boat now. I think we do need somebody that is going to come in and reset the standards of the club. I think that's one of the biggest things that's been missing from Russell Martin coming in. Little things, and if you remember Gerrard's teams, we were never really outfought, we were never really outworked, and I think that's the two basic things that we need back in this team.
Yeah.
For me, if it isn't Gerrard, you'd be looking at the other two names that are kind of top of the list, which would have been Muscat or Dyche. Now, Dyche has ruled himself out for it, so Muscat remains the other one, and Chris will be happy to hear that, given his fondness of the mad Australian. But the problem you've got with Muscat is you're probably going to have to wait till mid-November, and we can't wait till mid-November. We need to get somebody in now, because we've got a semi-final against them in the 2nd of November that we need to win to be in the first final of the season, to have the first chance of silverware. And that could give these group of players and this club, a massive, massive boost to take into the second half of the year. So for me, somebody said it's a coronation and not a new manager search, and it kind of feels like that a little bit. If I was the owners, you're looking at the goodwill that Gerrard has at the club. Yes, people are going to hold up the fact they only won one trophy in 9 as a stick to beat him with, but it was probably the most important trophy out of those 9 that he won, to be honest. Yeah. So if he can replicate that, he got us back into a position where we were respected in Europe as a team. You think of some of the results that he put in with UEFA away, being down to 9 men. It's that kind of grit and determination that I think we've all missed from the Rangers team. So you either have Gerrard, or it's going to have to be somebody with very similar qualities that, as Kenny and Cheryl have said, that are the figurehead of the club and that are the ones setting the standard for everybody else, because that's what we've missed.
So,
Well, can I ask a question to you guys? In terms of if it is Gerrard, what would you guys think about bringing Beale back as part of his coaching staff? Would that happen, and how do you think it would be received?
So what it kind of ties in nicely with the item that I'm sharing on screen just now. FGAU is watching on YouTube. I just want the club to be thorough in the recruitment process. I've no preferred candidate. I just want my team to win games and bring shiny things to Ibrox. I've said for a long time now in the Sunday Show, if you're an avid follower of that, which I'm sure many of you are, that we have to get back into the habit of winning matches in the first instance. Matches, because if you win matches, you'll win shiny things. Simple as that. You can't do one without the other. And we have to get into that process immediately. On your point, Cheryl, the recruitment process is absolutely key for me. And if that, I'll say it, if that meant bringing Michael Beale in to work in some sort of capacity alongside Steven Gerrard, I wouldn't have any issue whatsoever. Everyone appreciates that things went south for him very quickly after he came in after Gio, and he never shared his selling a lot of glory with some of the punters that he brought in to support the club and try and take them forward. That said, I don't think you can doubt his coaching credentials, and there'll be people that will be looking in at this, watching, saying, "Oh, I can't believe we bring Beale back. I can't believe we have Beale back, considering what we've just lost." But a huge part of 55 was the involvement of Michael Beale, the winning games, the scrappy 1-0s that we hear about so often. Do you know what I mean? We never conceded many goals in that 55 season. Michael Beale was a big part of that. And he wasn't alone, but he was absolutely key to things that went on that season. So I personally, I don't know what Kenny and Rob would say, but I personally wouldn't have a great issue with it. I don't think he will be, assuming Gerrard comes back up the road, but I wouldn't have a great issue with it. Kenny, it's a great point. Where are you on the involvement of Michael Beale potentially?
It's a no for me. Absolutely not for me, but with an aperitif, if you like, that if Steven Gerrard wants him and his backroom staff, there's not an awful lot that you can do. If you want Steven Gerrard and he's picking his backroom staff, then if Michael Beale turns up, then we accept it, we move on.
Yeah.
And it's not Michael Beale the man here. It's more the kind of goings on and the antics when he was there at the time with these fake Twitter accounts and stuff like that, arguing with Rangers fans. It was just a nonsense. And that for me is I'm not saying I hold it against him, but in terms of the possibility or the prospect of him coming back to Ibrox and getting a job, I'm not quite sure I would fancy that very much. However, as I say, if Gerrard wants him in his coaching staff, then who am I to? I'm just a big guy doing a podcast. He's going to be he's going to be the manager, and if he decides he wants him, then so be it. That's kind of where I am.
Yeah, and I saw that you've obviously brought up a couple of things there that I think people will maybe forget about over time, because as time passes, you do begin to forget about stuff, and there have been people in the hot seat since Michael Beale who haven't made much a better job in it than him, by the way. But you do forget about the wee things that went on, the visits into local Rangers boozers and the sort of individual accounts that happened sort of post his time there. Rob, I go back to what I say, and I shared the comment, the criticality of getting this right, the recruitment being spot on, the team that whoever is the eventual, I'm not going to say head coach, I'm going to say manager, because I think that's what we're talking about now. I think it's important to differentiate that we are talking about bringing in a manager as opposed to a head coach. I think that's really important. If Steven Gerrard comes in with Michael Beale, then I think we should all be on board with that. As I say, I don't believe that's going to happen. Where would you stand if he was to be announced as part of his backroom staff?
Like Kenny says, you've got to trust the manager's judgment on that front. I think I'm not going to try and defend Michael Beale, but I think he's recognised that it's different being a manager of a club than it is being a coach, and I think he said that. And ultimately, you've got to have a really thick skin as a manager, because all the criticism falls at your door if the team aren't playing well, and he probably underestimated how that might impact him. I think the one thing I've seen in the comments, and there's been a lot of whispers about this online, is that Steve Holland might be part of the backroom team. And if you look at his credibility and who he's been assistant manager with, that's potentially a bit of a coup if it becomes Gerrard and Holland as the managerial duo with the likes of maybe Jermaine Defoe, Steve Davis. But I think we need to have an identity of Rangers in that staff, because I think that's something that we've been missing for far too long. Characters that know the club, that know what it means to be successful there, and have been successful, so they can demonstrate to the players, look, we've done it. We know what it takes to win at this club, and I think that's something that we've missed for the last 4, 5, 6 years. And simple things like in the backroom staff, Jimmy Bell was a phenomenal kit man because he'd been there and he'd done it through so many different managers. He could have a chat with the players that were getting too big for their boots and remind them of the standards and the club that they're representing. So we need to have that Rangers DNA throughout the backroom team, but you've got to trust the manager's judgment, because ultimately he's going to be the one working with them day to day. So if he thinks that they can deliver on the role that they're going to fill within the backroom team, then we've got to get on board and take the personality and personal feelings out of it.
Yeah, Haggis Killer's absolutely right. I think we're now into the stage where what we had under Russell Martin effectively was a head coach and then 2 coaches and then support coaches that all worked beneath him. What we're now looking at now is almost a figurehead with coaches, specialist coaches that will be working alongside him. I think, listen, the guys are saying in the chat, I completely agree. If we were to bring in Holland, it would be a fantastic appointment for the football club. It would be really exciting. He's been involved with a lot of sort of big names that have been successful and have a background and a reputation as being successful. So he'd be huge. We will come to Jermaine Defoe.
Here's a thought for you, Scotty, though, before we go on. What would you think, given Thelwell's opinion of him? Could Russell Martin have a place in Gerrard's backroom staff because he's such a brilliant coach?
Can't believe you went there. I cannot believe.
Plenty.
Sorry, I had to get it in somewhere. I know I'm jesting. Don't worry. It's just a completely tongue-in-cheek remark.
And no, I'm not even going to go there. Rob, what I am going to say to you, right, because we're now into the realms of, we're talking about recruitment. We're aware that there are processes ongoing just now, and we think that Steven Gerrard is quite a bit along the way. By all accounts, it doesn't look like Patrick Stewart and Thelwell, Rob, have been involved in this recruitment process. I read lots of bits and pieces yesterday. Some indicated that they were not even close to the meeting that Parag Marat and Andrew Kavanagh had in London yesterday. I just wonder what any next move means for both of these guys, considering how, as you've just said, one absolutely hung his hat on the previous manager and it failed spectacularly.
To be fair, I think it's probably full and final warning for both of them, to be honest. And let's face it, Patrick Stewart has presided over a couple of disasters in his time. Certain banners that fans had put up and his reaction to that. I think people I've spoken to that have met him, there's a general air of arrogance about him, and we saw it with the way that he interacted with some of the fans. So his jacket was already in a sugarly peg anyway. I think if you look at how much time we gave the previous coach, being able to understand you've made the decision and act quickly is something that needs to be done. And I think the fact that both Andrew Kavanagh and Parath Maga, I keep messing his name up, sorry, have had to get involved in this process, demonstrates the lack of faith that they've gotten, both of those individuals. And I wouldn't be surprised if we start to see Steinson become a little bit more involved with the day-to-day running, given his role within the 49ers football group. Because it may well be the owners are looking at it going, we've invested a lot of money here. We want a firing Rangers in Europe on the domestic front winning trophies, because that's how they're going to make the biggest commercial success out of the club that they can. And if that isn't happening, they're ruthless. So they will be looking at them and going, I don't care if you've been here for 3 or 4 months, you're out the door because you're way underperforming. And that's the way it should be, because ultimately, none of them have pulled up any trees since they've joined the club, and it wouldn't surprise me in the slightest if January or the second half of the year there was potentially other people coming in and not connected to the Thelwell family.
Yeah. I mean, Kenny, one thing that I kind of thought, and I thought it more as the week passed and I realised Andrew Kavanagh was coming back across to sort of meet with the new manager, effectively. I remember thinking, this guy must be really quite fed up that he was over for the European game, disappeared on the Friday, and then it's went belly up since then. He's had to come back and sort of fend off loads of obvious questions that come alongside a possible next appointment. The fact that Steven Gerrard makes it all that little bit more exciting. But he must be looking at the guys that are in the day-to-day running positions of the football club and think, wow, it's unfair maybe to suggest these guys are out of their depth, because I don't think that's the case. But if there is a doubt that they perhaps find that 95 of the role a bit of a challenge, I think it's quite clear that it's just not working out the way that everyone expected it to work.
Yep, and I think it's the timing of Russell Martin's departure was really quite key in this. But we've lost that game on Thursday night over in Graz, a game we should not be losing. Let's not kid on. We shouldn't be losing that. We've lost our first two games. You look at the games that we have and you say Roma, Braga, Porto, away to Brann. None of these games are going to be easy. Our European campaign is in jeopardy of collapsing before it's even started. It's that simple. And that costs a lot of money, Scott, as you know. It costs a fortune. So I think the timing's key here in terms of that. I think they've looked at it on Thursday night, man, this can't go on. I genuinely do think that's exactly what's happened. I think they've already probably had their suspicions that this isn't going to work, if you want to call it that. On Patrick Stewart, I think I mentioned this the other night, I think there's a really simple thing here. If you look at his tenure at Manchester United, where he had a number of different roles, but he ended up as the interim CEO during a takeover, the Jim Ratcliffe takeover there. And I think that's probably the natural progression for Patrick Stewart with Rangers, to be honest. I don't see him being a long-term figure at the football club at all. I could be wrong, but it's just the kind of way I see it. I don't think he's the type of guy that perhaps the 49ers or Kavanagh would be looking at pinning their hat on there. Do you know what I mean? Long-term. On Thelwell, that the jury is very much still very out on him, that it can't not be, because we haven't seen anything from the new players. I believe the new players are probably a damn sight better than they've managed to show under Russell Martin, and I think a proper coach and a proper manager gets huge amounts out of I'll rephrase that, a huge amount more out of these guys. That remains to be seen though. But I genuinely think that if you're Andrew Kavanagh and you're the 49ers, Parag Marathi, Greta Steinson as well, who Rob mentioned, they must have looked at that and went, right, quite honestly, they were probably, when was the last time Rangers went 5 wins in their first 17 games?
Yeah, absolutely. And
just thought, no chance, we can't have this. The change has to happen. So for me, I don't see Patrick Stewart lasting much longer than to the turn of the year, maybe perhaps at an AGM. I know they went private, but I do think that I would expect him to step down about then. And Thelwell, the jury's out. That's what I would say.
Do you know, it's really interesting, Cheryl. I think Greta Steinson is someone who is, I don't want to say he's forgotten about, but it's easy to miss him because he's not in and around the sort of fabric of the football club on a daily basis, whereas we know that Thelwell and Patrick Stewart very much are. You've got, I would imagine Steinson was quite heavily involved in the appointment of Russell Martin, surely, based on the million interviews that he had to go through before he actually got appointed, and all the other people that were linked to that point. Of course, if you believe, I think I saw someone say at the start of the week on social media that Ancelotti let them down at the very, very last second, and Russell Martin was almost oh shit, he's not taking it, we need to get someone. And at that point, it was Russell Martin was the last man standing. I'm not suggesting that he he was unfairly appointed. I don't think that's right, but there was definitely comments at the start of the week that he was maybe their preferred candidate. But Steinson seems to be someone who seems to be, as I say, just because he's no back and forward to the games all the time, would have played a relatively large involvement in appointing Martin. I would imagine is in and around discussions for Steven Gerrard. The importance of them getting it right this time is really, really, really critical. They will not get a third opportunity if this goes tits up.
Yeah, and that's what we said on Sunday, wasn't it, Scotty? That was everybody's kind of concerns about it, that was the worry. And I guess that's what makes Gerrard such a great fit. We know him, we know what he's capable of, we have that relationship with him. He knows us, he knows what the club's all about, he knows the league, he knows how important Rangers are to us all, and it's almost as if he feels the same way. In terms of what you guys were speaking about, I thought the statement, I think was it Monday that it came out? The statement for me almost felt like they were having to come in and clean up the mess that Thelwell and Stewart had made behind it. It was almost like, right, apologies for those two idiots. We kind of took our eyes off the ball. To run it, we clearly can't. We'll sort it, back with you as soon as possible, and we'll get you somebody decent in. That's how I think that. I thought it was actually a really, really good statement.
Do you know? And I think there's a lot. I think there's a lot of truth in that, to be perfectly honest with you, because you have had the sort of, it's like Andrew Kavanagh's sort of peeked behind the curtain on Sunday post match when you've seen your manager be walked by the stewards at the Falkirk Stadium to a car just to get back out onto the M9, and it was just a bad look. It's never happened to any Rangers manager as far as I can remember. So it was something that had to happen, I think. And as I say, the next steps that this board take are absolutely key to their reputation, the Rangers brand, and their legacy as custodians of the football club. It looks largely like Steven Gerrard's backroom staff are going to be. We've spoken about Steve Holland. Looks like he's going to be in there. Rob, I wonder if there's any secrets you would trust Jermaine Defoe with right now.
Absolutely not. Certainly wouldn't trust him to have any secret pictures on his phone anyway, that's for sure, the way that he's been going about. I think the one thing that you've got to say about Jermaine Defoe, though, is that he does not hide his love for our club, which is great to see from an ex-player, because I wish more of them would be like that. Anytime you hear him talk about the club, it's always glowing in terms of the time that he had here, his relationship with the fans, his relationship with his teammates. And I guess if he is going to be part of that backroom team, he comes in with a bit of credibility. You look at his career, his history, the fact that he won a trophy with us as well. He's won the league, so he's trod the path that these players need to go down. And given that most of them have come from the Championship, they'll have a respect for him because of his time in the Premiership, etc. So I definitely wouldn't trust him with a secret. But I would trust him to be part of Stevie G's backroom team, and certainly if he can get Chimity firing and finishing the way that he used to, then we maybe might make some money back in that £8 million that we paid for him.
Yeah, listen, it'll be really interesting to understand how that all forms together, how that team works. And it'll be one worth watching, rather. I think, particularly over the weekend, there'll be more to report on it. Kenny, I do want to speak about one, and I never spoke about this in the agenda, but it just came to me. I know Nico Raskin is on international duty right now, I think, almost. I just wonder how. So we've heard loads about Nico Raskin over the summer. Some good, some bad, some somewhere in the middle. I just wonder for the importance of his career, taking into account where it is as far as contract renewal discussions, contracts running down, potentially of Steven Gerrard coming in as the new coach. It could be a really, really defining moment in that young man's career, and how he knuckles down, screws the nut, listens to what I'm sure will be loads and loads of advice that will come his way. What an appointment Steven Gerrard could be for Nico Raskin.
Potentially, yes, but that a lot of that will depend on Nico himself and his behaviour and his attitude and the way he goes about things. Because we all know, we've all heard stories. There hasn't been a manager that he's worked under at Ibrox yet where he's not questioned. So, what I would suggest to Nico Raskin, who, as you say, will be out on a football pitch at the moment, warming up, I would imagine. But if he ever actually does watch this, I would watch what you say to Steven Gerrard. He's one of the greatest midfielders of all time, mate. He'll teach you a thing or two. And just be careful with the way you approach it with someone like that, because he'll take the ball off you and show you how to do it. And he'll show you how to do it better than you ever can. So on that basis, I think if the boy can screw the nut, as you say, Scott, and properly get his head down, listen, learn, take everything on board from what is going to be, if this does come to pass, what is going to be a tremendous team. If you can't learn from someone like Steven Gerrard, Steve Holland, Jermaine Defoe, Gary McAllister, all these people, if you can't learn from that as a player, then you're at the wrong football club. Because, I mean, for goodness sake, what that's quality, and that's players that's a coaching staff, Scott, that can take the ball off you and show you what to do.
Yeah,
without even having to tell you.
No, I mean, I completely agree with you. I think that I genuinely think that Raskin could flourish. And listen, it's something we've said loads before. Cheryl, Kenny's alluded to it. Nico Raskin's played under numerous managers now and seems to be quite smart and speaking to the right people so that his opinion gets published in some way, shape or form. He would do well just to listen to what Steven Gerrard's trying to tell him in this instance, don't you think?
I think that's the thing about Gerrard, though, and you could see it from that squad when he was with us from 2018 to 21. He just commanded that respect.
Yeah.
All the players that worked under him still to this day speak so positively of him. I seen Ryan Jack this week. Andy Halliday absolutely loved him. You guys can correct me if I'm wrong, but I cannot think of anybody. I heard Kamar Roof today come out and speak about him as well. There is none of that squad that have anything negative to say about him. In fact, they're the opposite. They're coming out and praising him, his tactics, how he was as a man manager. So I don't think you get away with that kind of shit with Steven Gerrard. He just won't allow it. And I think he kind of sets his stall out with that early doors as well. So I don't think Nico Raskin would have that option. But I think if he did, there would be only one winner.
Yes, and as there
Josh
should be.
Windass didn't like him, Scott.
Say again?
Josh Windass is the only one. So
says it all about Josh Windass, though, doesn't it?
I'll leave that there.
Dear. So Bluebells Are Blue has gifted 5 Four Lads Had a Dream podcast memberships. So we're grateful for that. Thank you very much. Kenny, I want to come on to the next bit about you, and I'm aware of the sensitivity around this. However, there is no danger we ain't going to pod tonight and not mention the scenes that appeared on social media this morning, Kenny, about the Walter Smith statue. I've got my own thoughts on it. I'm happy to pass it on to you, and you can take it away, my friend.
All I'll say on it, Scott, is this is a really sad thing. It didn't even get me angry. I just thought, how sad can people be? And before we all jump the gun, right, and presume anything, forget your football colours here at the minute. How can you do that?
Yeah.
How could anybody do that to a family? How could anybody hurt people in such a manner? I find that. Bear in mind that the man's only there, past a few years, 2 or 3 years.
Yep.
It's not a long time here. What on earth are you doing something like that you find yourself on national news and half the city absolutely disgusted with you, the other half, probably the majority of them, are silently disgusted also. And as I say, I'm not suggesting it is Celtic fans or anything like that, because we don't know, right? It could be anybody that's done this. Shame on you. I mean, find that, whoever recorded that, I would suggest that's where we look. That's where the police start looking. Because to do something like that is, I just find it a sad kind of sign of the way society is these days. I could never dream. Thankfully, there's a load of statues across the city, and nobody's ever went over there and done anything like that. And I pray they never do, because shame on you if you do. It's not about football colours. This is about a human being who there is. It's a remembrance statue, for goodness sake. What are you doing?
Yeah,
To talk to people's families. That's what it's more about for me, Scott, than anything else. I'll say it in this way. I'm older than you guys, but he was like our dad to a certain degree, if you know what I mean. And he was. When Walter first took over, I was a 21-year-old boy, and he's just been a massive part of my life all my adult life, and I just can't get my head around why someone would do something like that. I actually get quite emotional about it, because it's not. I just find it shame on you. That's all I can say, Scott. I just find it such a sad sign of the way society is these days, mate. I just I cannot get my head around it at all. Not at all.
Do you know one thing I completely agree with everything you said there, resonate with every word. And when I saw it, do you know the one thing that I saw this morning? It's obviously it's Walter. It's Walter Smith. We all love him, continue to love him, and we'll forever love him, regardless of who comes in next and whatever they do. But when I saw that this morning, my gut reaction was, that's someone's granda. Do you know what I mean? And I felt at that second, when you take away do you know what I mean? Rangers legend, Scottish football legend, by the way, which I think many of us lose sight of. If you go back and forward to Hampden, for example, that would never have happened outside Hampden. Never. That would never have happened outside Hampden. It would only ever have happened outside our place, Rob. And I wonder if my main concern is, and we obviously don't know who's done it, who's responsible, where he or she is from, but there's always a risk that opens up a very, very slight tit for tat window that, as Kenny says, we've never seen before, and I'm not suggesting we're going to see it again, but taking the mentality of, I'm pissed off you've done that to Walter Smith. Do you know what I mean? It's a reaction, isn't it?
Well, you can only hope that nobody feels the need to do that. I'm the same as Kenny. I think regardless of the team that you support, and regardless of if any type of statue that you deface, it just shows a complete and utter lack of respect for why those monuments and statues are there in the first place. And especially an individual like Walter, who was, I won't say universally loved across football, because there's obviously a rival team that maybe didn't love him, but he did have the respect of players and managers that managed that club, and across the rest of Scottish football, and to see something like that happen, it is, like Kenny says, he's the manager that the majority of Rangers fans will look to as the one that's delivered us most success. It's the happiest times we've had as supporters, and like you, it's somebody's dad, it's somebody's granddad, and for them to kind of see that, it's the lack of respect for me that isn't surprising in today's society, unfortunately. Again, I think, like Kenny says, it's indicative of where we are from the times that we're in. But I just hope that the majority of Rangers fans wouldn't, or football fans in general, wouldn't look to do that tit for tat thing and rise above it. I think ultimately, I saw something from the Rangers fan board today. Fan advisory board putting out a bit of a statement, which is good, because it's got to be highlighted that these types of acts are unacceptable, regardless of your colour, creed, football, religion, whatever it is. It shouldn't matter. These types of things should not be happening, and hopefully there's enough CCTV coverage, like Kenny says, whoever's recorded that and posted that video, wherever that has started from, is the prime culprit that you've got to be looking at to be asking some questions around where they were and why they would do it. I can only speak personally. I don't think I'd ever wake up or sit in the house bored at night and go, I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to go to a football stadium. I'm going to pretend to, I'm going to set something on fire and I'm going to try and jump onto their pitch. I think for most normal-minded individuals, it doesn't even cross our mind. So for it to happen and to happen to that one is just a bit upsetting. But yeah, hopefully they can get to the bottom of it and catch who it was that they'd done it.
Craig is watching on YouTube and makes a really good point. Walter Smith is good friends with Tommy Burns, as we know, and helps promote the Billy McNeill Dementia Charity. And the other side's proper fans would realise that. And I think it's a fair point. I think it's easy to sort of get dragged into it was the me, it was him debate. I've seen a lot of Celtic supporters speak about it and condemn it very, very highly, Cheryl. I just think something like that, it's just a bad look. It's a really, really bad look for people that loved Walter Smith and Everton. Looking up, they're thinking, what is going on there? What's the matter with the people in that city?
Yeah. Do you know what? I don't think there's much that I can add that you guys haven't put very succinctly. But it just beggars belief, doesn't it? We know that social media is a cesspit. We know that, people are faceless on social media. There's a lot of abuse that can be put out and directed at people with no comeback or consequences. But this is another level. This is somebody that's actually made the decision to go there and do that. And it's just absolutely mind-blowing. And like you guys, I just hope we don't go into that thing of tit for tat. I don't think we will. People are so disgusted by it that there does seem to be the kind of revulsion around it, and that would be enough to put anyone off. I think, was it the club? Did the club put out a statement today to say that they were aware of it as well? So fingers crossed they can go down the route of having a look at security footage, etc., and we get some baggery.
Yes, I agree. I totally agree with you. So let's guess, Kenny, on you go.
Sorry, I just wanted, can I jump in very quickly on this to finish this off, if you don't mind, Matt? I think it's important that we sit here and we say we don't know as Celtic fans. We're not blaming Celtic fans at all here, right? I think it's really important for us to do that. I know there's a rumour going about that it was apparently Greek fans after the game last night. There is a wee rumour it might be that. It's just a sad, as I say, indictment of our city. Actually, that it's a kind of natural thing to think the worst in the other people. And I just want to say, I knew Billy McNeill and I knew Tommy Burns. Tommy Burns was a neighbour of mine when I was a kid. He was a lovely man. And Billy McNeill, I used to cut his hair for years, and he was a cracking guy as well. And this city's got to be better than this. That's all I'm going to say.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think it's, and you're absolutely right. When we stress, we don't know who's responsible for it. But it's just a shitty thing to do. Society's goosed if we think that's acceptable, to be perfectly frank. Cheryl, straight back to the football, because I'm conscious we are pushing it for time. How does the weekend pan out for you? Do we start Monday next week with a new manager in charge?
Yes, I think so. I hope so. I think it's what we need. Obviously, we get a big game, Dundee United on Saturday. Hopefully the new manager will be in a position where they know for a wee while maybe, or they've had an inkling it might be them. Perhaps the new manager is somebody that's very fond of Rangers and has been watching our games and our performances with maybe a wee word in that individual's ear. Perhaps that person was maybe even consideration in the summertime and turned it, has a very clear idea where we've gone wrong and how that person can put things right.
Yeah, no, I agree. Rob, same for you. I assume Monday start with Steven Gerrard. That sort of Rev B begins.
Absolutely, it would be good just to see a little "Let's go" tweet or something like that from the
Which is exactly what they should do. It's exactly what they should do.
So I know. I mean, I think that's the only thing. I'm guessing we'll all be keeping our eyes on the news channels and Twitter rumours, etc., and WhatsApp messages that get forwarded many times with like John Bennett as chairman, which was hilarious this week.
Yes,
so you'd expect an announcement Monday, absolutely.
And Kenny, obviously, the one thing that we hope, and I'll end with you tonight. One thing that we hope is that, assuming Steven Gerrard is appointed and returns to the sort of football club from Monday onwards, we hope it gives us a jolt, a kick in the rear end, and an improvement notice almost to the existing squad. And it should instantly make them realise that standards have changed from that movement that moment moving forward. We just need to hope that from Monday we get that. With the appointment of Steven Gerrard, as I've said already tonight, is really, really key. I think it's a big moment for him. I think he's got, I don't want to say unfinished business, but he's definitely got a point to prove when he comes back up. He left under a bit of a cloud. It would be at that moment on Monday when he's announced that everything does just begin to click into space, and we need to see evidence that we're heading in the track that we hope the 49ers were going to take us in at the start of the season.
Correct. And could you imagine Max Aaron's saying what he said last week? If Steven Gerrard is his manager, he's not going to last 2 minutes, mate. I can tell already. He just isn't going to last if that's his attitude. And the word you used, you hit on the head there, mate. It's standards. It's the standards that have to be raised right across the board. And for me, I think some of these players that are at the club at this moment in time are in for a bit of a shock, a bit of a culture shock, because the levels required to play for Steven Gerrard the last time were incredibly high. You had to be incredibly fit. You had to bulk up. Just to look back in the amount of players that had to go to that gym and bulk up half a stone right away. You will be fitter, faster, stronger, everything that Russell Martin promised us. And we didn't see it was exactly what Steven Gerrard gave us the last time. Now, you're right. Did he left under a cloud? He's got a point to prove. He's got unfinished business. All these cliches, you're absolutely right, because they are all correct, every one of them. But for me, what I really want to see is him driving down Edmiston Drive in his Range Rover with Jermaine Defoe in his retro tracky hanging out the sunroof, mate, and we're all going. We're all at it. And it'll be
wearing a suit with brown brogues.
Exactly. And bring it on. Let's go again. All the stuff, all the cliches, as I say. I can't wait for it if it happens, because I'll go back to the word you said, the standards. The standards over the last 4 years have dropped so dramatically since the man left, and he will haul this club up by its bootlaces, mate.
Yeah, and do you know what I mean? With it, and if David Herd is watching, I'm sure he'll appreciate this, but I hope he's got his suit dusted out for standing on the touchline. Kenny, it's always good to have you on. It's great. This is the first time we've podded together. It's great seeing you on, but I'm really glad we had the opportunity to do it. So thanks for joining me tonight. Well done. Not
at all. Known you all this time, mate. It's the first time we've ever done it. Thoroughly enjoyed it. Thanks, guys. I'll even say thanks to Cheryl. Well done. Thoroughly enjoyed that.
Rob, Cheryl, we're not back. So I'm away with my hollybobs on Thursday, I have to say, and looking forward to it immensely. So we'll miss the return of the man to Ibrox. So when I return, I think the next Sunday show will be some point in November when I'm back, to be honest with you. It feels like it's ages away, but it'll go on really quickly. The guys will be available to jump on at any point at the weekend if something happens that maybe we all expect to happen and we hope does indeed happen. In the meantime, just a final thanks to our sponsors, CSD Air Conditioning, Athol Industrial Solutions, Black Rooster, Rhino Express, and Clyde View Joinery. Cheryl, Rob, Kenny, thanks very much. Enjoy your weekend. Stay looking across your social media for whatever happens next. And as I say, if there's news breaking, we will be on it as soon as we can. Enjoy your Friday and have a great weekend. Bye for now.
The Four Lads podcast is sponsored by Rhino Express, Clyde View Joinery, Athol Industrial Solutions Limited, and CSD Air Conditioning, in partnership with Black Rooster and Art of Gold. Thank you for listening to or watching the podcast. We hope you enjoyed the show.